Michael Blau. Hi, Chris. I've got a subject that might make an interesting clip. The life of a student in the academy. It's a subject that seems to have been forgotten. At least I don't remember ever hearing you mention it. I think your non-Scientologist subscribers would be interested in your discussion of the subject. The day-to-day life of a student and the craziness of studying with management by statistics. Keeping track of definitions, not just words, cleared, and how many self-originated demos you do, 5 points each, I believe. Okay, Michael, well, I did do, I think about a year or so ago, a fairly extensive kind of talk/rant on my podcast about the character and nature of training in Scientology. And I went into a lot of detail about a lot of different aspects of it. But I think you're right that I don't know, I can't recall, because it was about a 3-hour podcast, 2 to 3 hours. I don't recall, I think I mentioned something about the student point system, but let me tell you guys a little bit more about this. And I'll link to that big, longer podcast in the description section below if you're curious or haven't seen that. In Scientology, not only do you do auditing where you get the one-on-one counseling and you do classes or courses, when you do the courses, you don't just show up, open up your book, and start reading. That there's a statistics system that students are run on. And the statistics system is called student points. Every action you take as a student has a point value connected with it. The more I think about this, the more I think I did talk about this in the podcast. But anyway, let me, just in case I didn't and I'm remembering this wrong. The point system is an arbitrary valuation of every action you can do as a student. If you read a page, that's 10 points. If you read the page of a book, it's 5 points because that's a smaller amount compared to a book page, like an issue page. So 10 points for an issue, 5 points for a book page. Every single page, every time you turn the page, you do a little hash mark on a scrap piece of paper or something because you get indoctrinated into the system where there's actually an issue posted on the notice board, and there are graphs for every single student. A piece of graph paper with the dates along the bottom of each day that you study and the amount of student points that you made for that period. Actually, there are 2 numbers that are kept. It's the total student points are kept for the day, and then the average student points per hour. Because if you studied for 8 hours, you're clearly going to have a lot of student points. Whereas if you study for 2 hours, you're not. So it'll crash and it'll look like you didn't produce as much from one day to the next. But if the average is actually going up, then you actually are an upstat student because you're doing more per hour than you were the day before. These are how these points are sort of watched or monitored. And the students keep track of not just pages read, but actual number of definitions that are cleared when you look up a word. You don't just count the word. The word could have 10 definitions, and you have to go through every one of those definitions. Each one is 3 points. So you, again, are keeping hashtags of, not hashtags, sorry, the little hash marks of how many definitions you're clearing, how many little demonstrations you do with the little demo kits, how many clay demonstrations you do, because those are worth more. The little demos, I think, were worth 5 points or 7 points. Clay demos are worth 50 points per section or part. So, you could get big points by doing, if you spent all day on the clay table, you could get yourself a lot of student points fairly easily. Also, when you do drills, there's lots and lots of points for that. So much so that in Scientology history, it was true many, many times, especially this was a big thing in the 70s, where you could do those TRs, the communications drills. You could just be assigned to do them because you were making like 150 points an hour plus like 300, 400, 500 points bonus for completing each TR. So the supervisors would get a little TR hungry, right? Because they'd want to get more student points because the supervisor is adding up everybody's student points, and that's his statistic. one of his key ones. He's got 2, student points and student completions. Every major course gets 2 points, every minor course gets 1 point. So the emphasis is on major course completions, lots of student points. But the supervisors used to just pull people off of their courses entirely and make them do an hour or 2 of TRs just because they wanted the student points to go up. It was straight up stat push. No other reason for these guys to be doing that. And supervisors would do all kinds of crazy things over the years. And I was a supervisor for many years. And I did a lot of crazy, stupid stuff trying to finagle how to get more student points. It was all about the points and all about the completions. And for example, we had the week would end on Thursdays at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That was the end of the week. So you had it from Thursday to 2 o'clock to Thursday at 2 o'clock. That was your statistical period. And so Wednesday night was crunch time. It was the time before Thursday morning. And many, many, many sleepless Wednesday nights, staying up sometimes all night long, getting a student through a course because they were in there pitching to win the birthday game, and I was revving them up, and I had to do a whole sales job on them to get them to come in and do that so that we could get our statistics for Thursday at 2. No other reason than that, just a dot on a wall. That was how important that was, that I lose a night's sleep, this poor schlep lose a night's sleep. He paid for the course, and I'm keeping him up all night so he can learn, right? And I can get my student points and I can get my completion statistics. So this is kind of the culture of Scientology. Being even a public Scientologist, you can't get away from all the statistics. It's everywhere. It infects everything. So anyway, that's a little rundown on that.